Look, I want to go over why I believe the Ravens are going to win another Super Bowl within 5 years. Or at the very least, they will make it back to the Super Bowl in 5 years' time. And I don't know if it'll be with Joe Flacco, possibly Lamar Jackson, or even another quarterback we don't know about. But one thing is for sure. They are building the roster that has made them the dark horse team in the NFL. The one that has consistently seemed to give the New England Patriots a run for their money. Maybe it was necessary to have a few mediocre seasons so they could, build back up and come full swing in the drafts. For some reason, nobody is talking about the Ravens, but this is when the team does the best. When nobody thinks they're relevant, they come up from behind and ass rape everyone just by their defense alone. Look, all I know is there's a reason Terrell Suggs hasn't retired yet, and that's because he's seeing what I'm seeing. Now, in order to look at what the Ravens are doing, we have to go back to the 2017 draft where Ozzie Newsome drafted almost entirely on the defensive side of the ball, right? The Ravens were still ranked 9th in defense in the league that year before they drafted. And honestly, if the Ravens weren't close to bottom of the league in rushing and thus time of possession, then their defense could have been top 5 if they weren't on the field the entirety of the game. Anyway, I digress. But on face value, the Ravens draft that year didn't pan out as hoped during the season. Aside from first rounder Marlon Humphrey, who was the number 1 cornerback replacement for the highly underrated Jimmy Smith. And I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. Marlon Humphrey has all the tools needed to be a star caliber cornerback. He's got the intangibles, he's got the help from the pass rush, the mentorship, and overall he's on a great defense that will succeed as he succeeds. So when Jimmy Smith returns, hopefully by this year, the Ravens are going to have 2 shutdown corners. And just looking at success from past teams, 2 shutdown corners is a huge luxury that can go a long way. It helps to know your guys can win their 1v1 matchups because it gives coordinators so many options in terms of coverage and blitzing. Now going on to the second round, Ravens picked up Tyus Bowser, who, while not getting, many reps, he still saw 3 sacks his rookie year, and he could very well be used in blitz packages, and with his 4.65 40, also has potential to seal the boundary on the edges. And you pair him up with CJ Mosley, and you have a very formidable, cerebral, destroy everything pair of linebackers, similar to Kuechly and TD in Carolina. Now, Tim Williams, who they picked up in the 3rd round from Alabama, may or may not be a bust. Who knows? He hasn't shown as much downhill speed as Tyus Bowser this year, but he may just need time to adjust to the NFL style of offense. He has the measurables, and he's just slightly slower than Bowser. But, I liked him in Bama. I'm rooting for him in Baltimore. And speaking of the 3rd round, they also grabbed Chris Wormley that year from Michigan, who, I never really saw him on the field. I don't know if he was injured. I don't know what happened to him, but at the very least, in the future, he will be fresh rotational depth for the pass rush, late in games. He probably also just needs time to develop and learn from Suggs. And for round 4 and 5, Ravens just simply decided to shore up the offensive line, which is very much needed in this day and age of the modern NFL. And now, like I said, this draft wasn't one that was going to, pop open like microwavable patties. It's more of like a slow marinating process, like a Thanksgiving turkey, So this draft may very well show its full blossom 2 to 3 years down the road. But that was one of the things I liked about the previous draft for the Ravens, was that they shored up the offensive line and they went all out defense. They built up on what they knew was their formula to win, defense and giving Joe Flacco time to throw. So moving on to the 2018 season, Ravens decided to flip the script. And so they mostly drafted for offense in the first few rounds. This is what I liked, all right? They double dipped by grabbing the best and most complete tight ends of the draft, Hayden Hurst. He will make huge day 1 contributions in blocking and pass catching. And they also picked up Mark Andrews from Oklahoma, who needs work blocking, but is a great pass catching tight end. And I actually don't think, I think his blocking is severely underrated. You look at the game tape from the Sooners and you see just how much time Baker Mayfield has to throw. And obviously that's entirely in part due to his offensive line. But Mark Andrews has thrown some key blocks that have resulted in touchdowns and huge plays that he does not get credit for. Now, they also took a risk in grabbing tackle Orlando Brown. This dude was a meme, literally, for a little bit for how shit he was in the combine. But listen, here's the fact. This dude is a mammoth of a man. And combine workouts aren't really indicative of much, let alone for like linemen. Otherwise, there would be no 7th round undrafted free agent Andrew Norwells that end up becoming all pro guards and tackles. We would know who we want at the very beginning and it'd be clear cut and dry, but it's not. Linemen are one of the hardest to draft for. And the fact is, if you can ball, bro, you can ball. And given time and a lot of work and effort on his part, Brown will be able to prove that. Is he a contributor who will come in and win the tackle spot on day one? Fuck no. But, he doesn't need to be. Now, I say this one for last, and that is the Ravens splash draft by grabbing Lamar Jackson. 31 teams skipped on him, so now he's got a chip on his shoulder, competing for reps with Joe Flacco and RG3. Who will win the quarterback position? Now, here's the thing, Ravens fans. I might get a lot of flack for this, no pun intended, but I still think Flacco is your franchise quarterback, even if he hasn't shown it in a while. Competition breeds excellence. It brings out the best out of everyone involved because they know in the back of their heads that every rep could be your last, and it lights a fire under your ass. And that's something that Flacco has needed. A fire to bring the playoff elite out of him. And, given the weapons and improved offensive line that he has to work with, as well as Jackson breathing down his neck, be sure to know that Flacco will be playing out of his mind. And, it's not the fact that I think that the Ravens have a fantastic head coach. It's not the fact that I believe that the Ravens are grabbing some very young key players in the draft who have huge upside. It's the fact that I believe in their philosophy, and it has worked already for how young of a franchise that they are. And I think it's gonna work again. This is a team that continues to win championships, and they're going to continue to do so. It's been a while, a couple years since the Ravens have been relevant in the AFC, but I think a couple of mediocre seasons was all that was needed for them to really get their shit together. And New England Patriots, Jacksonville Jaguars, Pittsburgh Steelers, watch out, because they're going to come and bite you in the ass.